you ever tried to coordinate 4 men in their 30s into the same room on a Sunday morning for a recording session? It's about as easy and stress-free as you'd think, but the results can be pretty impressive. That's what I did in order to demonstrate the live performance capabilities of the latest portable amps from Orange. These are all 100-watt, solid-state, gig-capable amps designed for the stage, particularly for the guys loading in and out of small gig spaces who don't want to be lugging huge, heavy valve amps upstairs and from the car parked 2 streets away. I hired a bassist, a drummer, a cameraman and a 17th century castle mill which has been converted into a performing arts centre in order to get these turned up and show them in their intended context, being played by some tired, middle-aged blokes who haven't practiced nearly enough, completely butchering your favourite rock songs in a pub covers band. It's real, raw and honest live music for anyone sick and tired of hearing gear demonstrated in a controlled recording studio environment. If you want to know what these baby amps will sound like on a stage, having been allotted a 10-minute changeover and no sound check, the Greasy Lovers have you covered. Tour, Dual, Gain, Baby. From the moment you unzip these from their fitted carry case, it's clear these are not your typical guitar amplifiers. Each of these is a 2-channel preamp, 100-watt power amp, all analog, solid-state amp head just begging for the stage. I'm going to level with you right now, these are not bedroom-level practice amplifiers. Even the lowest notch on the volume control kicks out serious loudness from a 212 cabinet, which meant that demonstrating them in my little home studio is going to be impractical. So I called in the help of some friends. This is Calum and Nathan. I've known these guys a long time. They've been playing together in bands since they were teenagers and are no strangers to a live performance. They currently both play together in the psychedelic rock band Leaf Lady and the Wish Collective, and Calum also plays bass in the pop group Cloudhouse. I'm definitely the weakest link in that chain, having not played live with other musicians for many years. My main concern going into this is not accidentally making the boys, or the amps, look bad by association. I prepared 3 songs that were well within our skill levels, that could be learned quickly, and would represent the type of songs a covers band might play. We did 1 rehearsal the day before, which was essential for getting everyone on the same page. And I say this simply to temper any expectations. This really is 3 guys stepping into a room together for the first time and jamming it out with the bare minimum equipment. I'll say that works. The venue for our live sessions was the Straven Town Mill, originally built in 1650 to harness the power of the river flowing beneath it to grind grain into flour, supplying the castle whose ruins still sit atop the hill overlooking the mill, which in 1974 was converted into a performing arts centre and recording studio. But I know you're not here for the context, you're here for the amps. First up, we have the Tour Baby. If you're familiar with either the Orange Rocker Verb or Super Crush, this is essentially the compact version. Tour Baby gives you a simple clean channel with a built-in VCA compressor, which is hugely advantageous when switching between clean and the classic Orange Dirty channel, which will do everything from light crunch all the way to saturated rock distortion. Just like the other baby amps, this is capable of driving 2 speaker cabinets and has a balanced XLR line out for direct recording. This line out has no cabinet emulation of any kind, so you will have to bring your own speaker IRs to bear. I used both a mic on the cabinet and the line out to capture the live performance to give the single guitar a stereo spread. Effects loop and foot switch control for both channels and volumes, the Tour Baby becomes a very effective canvas that can be painted on with pedals to cover a wide range of sounds that you typically need for a pop and rock cover set. I'm firmly of the mindset that all most guitars really need from an amplifier is a solid clean and distortion bass to build on top of, and the Tour Baby absolutely provides this with plenty of volume to spare. The drums and the bass, these baby amps had no problems keeping up. We had a balanced in-room sound, we could all hear each other, and while I was capturing 6 channels of audio for the mixed performance you've been hearing, the room mic on the witness cam further into the room gives a good indication of what it would have sounded like to an audience. There's one thing I regret about my performance of Easy Lover, it's that I didn't push the gain hard enough. Tour Baby has a lot more distortion to give, and listening back, I really could have used a bit more dirt. But not to worry, it's impossible to make the same mistake with the Dual Baby. The Dual Baby is my favourite of the 3 because it offers 2 different flavours of distortion. Channel 1 is the same rocker verb inspired dirty channel we encountered with the Tour Baby, but Channel 2 is a new, high gain channel voiced to have a more modern edge than you might typically find on Orange amps. I love this because it lets you set up a crunchy, classic rock rhythm tone with Channel 1, and then you can foot switch into a more saturated high gain lead tone that will slice through anything. If you're doing rock and metal covers and you have no need for a dedicated clean channel, this, with a simple pedal board, is perfection and couldn't have suited the high energy Deep Purple track better. Channel 1 features a tubby switch, which can thicken up the tone if you're using single coils or thinner sounding pickups, while Channel 2 goes in the opposite direction with a tight switch, punching up the upper mid-range to keep the high gain focused on sonic assault. Each channel has its own 3-band EQ and an additional presence control, which is very powerful for adding extra high-end sizzle to the distorted sound. my own tone settings here, I probably had this dialed in a bit brighter and a bit hotter than it really needed to be. But it felt so good in the room, with that solo tone especially being a delight to hear at gig volume. We had a lot of fun playing this one, despite all the mistakes we made. But what if we want to go even harder? For anyone who thinks Orange can't do heavy metal, let me introduce you to the Gain Baby. I knew this was going to be the one that everyone was interested in based on the name alone. Orange, calling this one Gain Baby really has done the other two amps in the series a disservice. Tour and Dual just don't live up to the coolness factor of the word gain, despite them both being equally good sounding products. Ironically, Gain Baby has less gain than the Dual Baby because we've traded out that classic dirty channel for that simple, clean channel again, and the VCA compressor becomes even more important now that we've paired the clean with the modern high gain channel. Heavy distortion, by its very nature, is super compressed, and the reason it usually sounds bloody awful when switching from high gain into clean is because you lost all that compression in the process. Clean tones reveal the huge dynamic spikes that the distortion was normalising. That little flickering light of the built-in compressor is going to keep the clean sections sounding consistent with the rest of the metal mayhem you are dishing out, and it also saves you a space on your pedal board for a sexier effect. I have no notes on the Gain Baby. This one sounded fantastic in the room, and each of us independently at different times went, damn, that sounds good. Maybe I could have dialed back the presence a touch on the distortion channel, which would have tamed the high-end fizz, and I wouldn't have had to fight that so much in the mix. But if I'd been in the audience, watching this performance live, I'd have been headbanging away without a care in the world. Difficult for me to find any faults with these baby amps. They do exactly what they've been designed to do. I used them for their intended purpose, they performed as expected, they were easy to use, and any complaints I have about the sounds that I got were really a result of me not spending enough time dialing in the tones for a recording context. Like I said at the start of the video, I wanted to capture a real experience of using these amps live, and at most gigs that I've ever played, you're lucky if you get a 10-minute changeover and a line check. At a real show, you don't have the luxury of time to be fiddling with knobs to perfectly balance your tone for the room. You've just got to plug in, turn it up, and go. Of course, I'm an Orange fanboy, and they pay me to make videos about their amps. So I'd understand if you were skeptical about my recommendation of these products. which is why I was paying particular attention to what the other guys had to say. Our cameraman, Scoosh, who my long-time viewers will know very well for his expensive habit of buying huge, impractical valve amplifiers, looked at how small these were, how easy they were to transport, and the sounds that we got out of them, and said, maybe it's time I got rid of the valve amp and got one of these instead. The convenience factor also had Calum questioning his gear decisions. Orange loaned us the use of a little bass thing amplifier and a 112 Neo bass cabinet to record with. It's the bass guitar equivalent of these baby amps. Super lightweight, portable, but still monstrously loud and gets you the sound you need. It's the correct size for small shows and awkward load-ins. And when your rehearsal space is up 3 flights of metal fire escape stairs, it's very easy to desire Orange's lightweight offerings over the giant 2-man lift Ampeg bass cab that can't leave the practice room. So if Orange's artist relations team want to look into Cloudhouse, Calum has voiced how much he'd prefer to be using this frustration-free Orange rig over what he's currently working with. And that's really where the strength of these products are. Over the last few years, I've seen several guitarists using the Pedal Baby Power Amp in conjunction with a pedal board for their small live shows. Now, these new baby amps offer the same convenience, but with your choice of preamps built into the unit, minimising your pedal board in the process. The pedal board I used here consisted only of a tuner, a noise gate, a foot switch to change the amp channels, and then an overdrive, delay, and a phaser because I couldn't be arsed rocking a wah pedal when pretending to be Kirk Hammett. It's a super simple board, and most of the time, the pedals were in bypass. These baby amps help minimise the equipment that you need for a show. Less effort to load in, less space needed to store it, and while these might not have the most nuanced or unique tones out there, they give you exactly the foundation you need to build on for the majority of pop, rock, and metal stuff you're likely going to be playing, especially if you are 3 blokes on the wrong side of 30 in a pub covers band. None of us are getting any younger, and the heavy stuff just feels heavier with every load in. These are there to take all of the pain out of moving equipment. I'm going to close out with some sound samples captured in the studio so you can get a sense of what can be achieved with these baby amps in a controlled environment with an unlimited setup time. I've stuck this at the end of the video because these aren't studio amps. These beg to be used live and loud, and I'd much prefer to have one of these on stage with me than a valve amplifier. Valve amps at this stage are an obsolete technology. A wonderful, affluent luxury to be housed in a recording studio where we don't have to pick them up and transport them all the time. Sure. But there are better options for live shows than hauling those things around. If you need a physical amplifier to drive a speaker cabinet to volume on stage, I think it would be hard to find something better than the Orange Baby amps for less than what these cost. If you are interested in checking them out further, there will be links in the video description below. That's all for now. Keep it loud and stay safe.